Hi, Matt.
Good morning.
I brought some folks in the back door.
That's just fine. All the doors are open.
You can sit anywhere you'd like.
Come on
Or the back door, so I don't know if there's the best place to sit or.
in. You might wanna hang out, we can set some, I don't know how many in-person commission members we'll have. So we can take room. More chairs around. Emily will sit there where her laptop is, and then obviously you don't wanna have your back to the screen here, so.
Yeah.
But I'll move this way to make some room. I bet we can get everybody around.
Oh, yeah, we'll be good.
I don't know how many we'll have online versus in person. So.
Good morning. Morning. Is the front door unlocked?
Everyone was coming around the side of
They were following me. All right.
You know, it's convenient.
Probably don't see a lot of public attendance for these early morning ones.
Not really. But then again, I don't see a lot for our late ones either.
Yeah.
Planning commission was so funny last night. We had people from CCRPC coming, so Darren had emailed me. He's like, does the PC usually meet in person or online? And I was like, oh, they're usually in person, you know, and he's like, okay, well, I'll come in person. So then he came and it was me and him sitting across the table and the entire planning commission
Decided
minus one came on Zoom. I said, well, what can I tell
Never
you?
know.
Mm-hmm.
Morning, Reed.
Morning. Hey, Gary, would you be willing to unmute and just say something so I can see if the speaker's working?
Good morning, everyone.
Yeah, as I suspected. Not hearing you. Hang on a sec.
Okay.
Sec for the owl.
Yeah, it's well, like.
Is that,
See if that means anything.
So Bobby. At 12?
he's kind of nervous now, but that's good.
There we go, Lee.
Morning.
All things on snake.
They went very well.
Go back here.
Can you just try again, Gary? Can I hear you?
Oh,
Yeah.
you working?
Yeah, I still can't hear you. I've got something going on my end. Hang on.
Yeah. You want to take Kendall's bags and.
Probably the same is true for Eric, huh?
Good morning. I can hear you.
Oh, okay,
Maybe.
I can hear you as well. Maybe you and I can meet you.
Make sure.
And nominate the rest of them to do stuff.
That's right, yeah.
Sometimes it defaults to your computer, not the
Yeah,
owl.
it was set to the owl, but it just wasn't, it's like it doesn't wake up or something.
Well, it hasn't had coffee yet.
Yeah.
Is the call tomorrow, USA is like set, if so.
USAS knows it has a great FIS.
Oh, it's,
You can see it online.
is it features?
Yeah. I was gonna say that little pyramid, kind of how they
All right, I'm gonna go ahead and start recording. Cool. Actually, it says I am recording.
Red or. This worked out pretty good rather than going down to Killington and all that.
I was getting nervous about her going on the jumps by herself, because she doesn't understand. She was so nervous, like no one's going with her. I even like contemplated something, I was like, what if no one went with you? When she's like, that will not be that productive. I don't trust people's, but you know where the six paths is, or the sunset left,
We do the core.
the one right outside.
Yeah.
Like if you hike up that, like all the way up there, and you can see them coming out of the park, it's like, that's the one. Yeah. Yeah, that's what about.
We have audio in the room yet?
Yep.
Sounds like it. All right, good.
Oh,
Just to give you a heads up, I'm gonna have to run my daughter down to the bus in about 5 minutes. I'll be back on shortly after that, hopefully.
We're hoping our kids get on the bus.
Yeah.
It happens.
No.
I was gonna have her walk down, but it's a quarter mile and it's 5 degrees out. I decided I'd better, drive her.
Yeah.
I think that was David Pauline.
Perfect.
Morning.
Morning.
Alright, Gary. Looks like that's everyone.
Great.
Let's do it.
Alright. Everybody else.
I don't think so. I think we're right.
Hey, we'll call this meeting to order. Got a pretty full agenda. And we'll open it up for public comment. Okay. No public comments. We will move on to the minutes. And this is from our 1:15 meeting. Great. And I did not get a chance to review this.
I looked at the minutes. They look good to me. I need to run my daughter down to the bus and I'll be back hopefully in about 5 or 6 minutes.
Thanks, Eric. Did anyone else have a chance to review those minutes who's present yet?
Yes, and they looked great to me.
Okay, fantastic.
I'll
Yeah.
make a motion to approve them.
Great,
Seconded.
excellent. Just say the motion carries even with Eric's absence. He signaled his support, so we'll approve the minutes for this 1:15 meeting. It feels like it's been forever. Literally. Okay, I'm just gonna pull up the next topic because I do want to have the.
Yeah, can you make me a co-host, please?
They're assuming I know how to do that. If you ask to share, I'll say yes to. Here we go. Your co-host.
And just like that, we're back on schedule.
the agenda. So the next item is pre-application review for DP 25-06. And this is the wrong staff report. This is not the conservation staff report. You pull that one up. So this application, began as a discretionary permit for a boundary line adjustment. Long story short is, the town attorney recommended we do some property research and we determined that, it needs to be a pre-application. And because there, are some, habitat areas mapped on the property, Conservation Commission review, is required. In the room with us, we have Scott and Summer Batdorf. They're the property owners for this application. So what they're proposing is a 2-lot subdivision of a parcel that's about 7.3 acres in total. There are 3 different concepts for access that are being proposed. Those aren't really germane to the Conservation Commission's discussion because the habitat areas are to the back of the property. We'll get into that further. So mapped on the property, we have core habitat and wildlife travel corridors, as well as scenic view sheds and streams, wetlands, lakes, ponds. In this case, just wetlands. For ERF prioritization, this property is mapped with the level of low. And the official map and the town's trail maps do not show any desired paths or primitive trails through the property. There is just the official map for a trail easement, or excuse me, a path easement along the Mountain View Road frontage, but no trails desired through the back of the property. This property is in the residential zoning district where, unlike the ARZD, there's no quantitative minimum requirement for open space, nor a requirement that it be plotted as a separate lot. There are areas that should be contained within the open space as summarized here. So watershed protection areas always need to be within the open space. Those are the wetlands and the wetland buffers, and minimal crossings for the driveway are allowed. Significant wildlife habitat areas, we are anticipating compliance here. As we'll get into further, due to the existing location of the home site and the wetland, the back portion of the lot is the only land that's physically suitable for further development. There's many types of open space that are not on the property, and we're not impacting any, we're not expecting any impacts to scenic view sheds for this property. So the overall land area that's being disturbed is less than a half acre. That's including the driveway, the home site, and the septic system within the habitat disturbance area. Typically, a habitat disturbance assessment is required, but there is an exemption listed in the bylaw for low impact clearing, thinning, grading, and excavation. So the recommendation would be to not require a habitat disturbance assessment for this property. And in lieu of that assessment, staff is recommending 2 items to support the habitat corridor. So reduce the size of the building envelope and shift it northwards to maintain an east-west travel corridor along the south side of the proposed home site. And maintain the existing hedgerow along the existing property line. And protect existing plantings during driveway construction. So what that means is the dashed line for the building envelope, bringing it a little bit closer to the home site. And then this hedgerow along the driveway, just protecting it to the extent feasible during construction.
Where is that written? Where's that recommendation actually written?
Is it in the recommendation?
It's here.
So I have it, if that's something that you guys are interested in, for number. Or should I think I meant to put in like placeholders where if that's something you guys are interested in, then we can copy paste those into the recommendations.
I read it last night and I didn't hear what you just said, which is the recommendation to move things north and the.
Hedgerow,
Hedgerow, yeah.
yeah,
So it would be, in addition to number one, so we would say 1A, shift building envelope north, and 1B, protect existing vegetation. And I can pull up the Word document for us to wordsmith, in a moment. So in terms of scenic view shed, this property is mapped with middle foreground and primary foreground. The existing dwelling is to the front of the property in that middle foreground. The proposed dwelling is to the rear. All of this land slopes southwards from Mountain View Road. And the existing home site and the proposed home site won't have an impact on that view shed towards the Green Mountains. So, no recommendations are anticipated to protect scenic view sheds. Watershed health. So because this property will be constructing a driveway across the wetland, a professionally prepared runoff and erosion control plan is required. And I do want to note for minimize impervious surface, there was the fire department request for a pull-off, that's not enforceable by the bylaw. The standards where our bylaw does require a pull-off is for driveways that serve more than one dwelling. So the portion of the driveway that's near, the home where a pull-off is shown, they can reduce that, which would reduce the amount of impervious surface, in the habitat area. And wetlands, there are wetlands mapped on the property. There's a couple small class 3 wetlands, as well as class 2 wetlands with the 50-foot buffers shown. The recommendation would be for the Conservation Commission to decide what kind of demarcation is required and where. I have it queued up on highlight here where we would drop those recommendations in. And I think primarily along the driveway where the driveway crosses the wetland, and then maybe some delineation for the portions of wetlands that are near the building envelope.
Can I ask a question about this one?
Mm-hmm.
The choice of the driveway, just given that, from these maps, it looks to be especially long. If the Beaudry, not Beaudry, what's that? Glazer Court. I mean, presumably that's gonna be a public road, right?
It's a private road.
Hmm.
There's a land easement to that. Parcel from that road that
Maybe we
they
can let
could,
you finish.
yeah,
Finish this
sorry.
question. So we have dug into this. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would assume so, because that would be an expensive driveway to have to construct, so if that Glazer Road is built, would you be able to connect the driveway to that court rather than extend this whole driveway, which will basically just be running parallel to it for?
Yeah, it's true. So that's our preference, and we've had some conversations with Jack and Tom Shepherd, and they're hesitant to talk about it much until their permits go through, but Jack says he's not opposed. So down the line, I think it would make sense to switch in 5 years or so onto that, because that road's not coming for some time.
Yeah, the timeline is an issue, depending
Yeah.
on what you guys are looking to do.
Yeah, that Glazer Court is phase 3 of that development, so they're gonna focus on the loop off of Old Stage Road first. So it'll be many years before Glazer Court begins construction. In terms of that permit process, it's in discretionary permit review. It will be required to be built to public works specifications and have an irrevocable offer on the right of way. However, the Public Works and Select Board's policy has been to not take public roads that don't connect anywhere. And this is a dead end cul-de-sac. As part of the connectivity requirements of the bylaw, we did ask them to plan for, stubbing that access towards the property line so that a future connection could be possible in the future. And per our official map, that there's connectivity to other parcels. The site development that's being proposed here on Backdorf doesn't preclude official maps. So one house is being proposed right now. If 20 houses, which the density allowed density provisions might allow or propose, we would want to see, thinking about that road connecting through. And the real vision is that if the Martell property to the west, if it develops, it would provide a connection to the east. So maybe a long time in the future, if all the stars align and all the properties develop in such a way that that road connects through, it can. But for the Batdorf property, we're just asking, don't put a home site or a septic system right in the middle where a future road could go through.
So you don't want to push it too far to the north,
Right.
because then you'd be getting into where there could be in the future a connection.
I think Jacques is here and he says it wouldn't be a problem to tighten up the building envelope towards the back of the house there, so that can be shown for the next meeting. Like still keeping the house back out of the roadway.
Yeah. Mhm. That answers the question about Glacier Court. I was wondering the same thing when I was reading it. I was like, oh man, it's a long driveway right next to a road that's being planned. Okay.
I guess while you're, while we're talking about the driveway and potentially grading for that, other developments that have abutted Mountain View Road have been asked to build that multi-use path as, you know, even if they're sort of out there in the middle of nowhere as little stubs. I didn't hear that as part of the recommendation, and it's not in the site plan. You only talked about it as an easement. So what is the expectation for a development like this in Mountain View to actually construct that part of the plan? And it would actually have to connect with whatever the Glazer portion is planning.
Right, so that's an item for consideration out of, I believe, either chapter 13 or 15 of the bylaw. So it's something that the DRB will be thinking about. And just to get everyone on the same page, where this is the path that's proposed on Glazer Court. What our official map says is we want a path along this south side of Mountain View Road. It comes down to a little bit about nexus and proportionality. And the DRB's preference has been for these smaller projects to just require the easement and not the path construction. So that's probably going to be the recommendation to the DRB and what their preference would be. If this development were proposing, you know, several new homes, then that nexus and proportionality say, hey, you're building a lot of new development. We would like you to build the path along your Mountain View frontage.
Okay. And is the property just that little square? I'm looking at this B Harvey, that's not in ownership by the applicant.
Correct,
No.
that is a separate property next door.
Okay.
I'm gonna pull up the plat because it's a little easier to understand the ownerships on this one.
Yeah, it's like a little L.
Yeah, so this is that existing property line, and then they're proposing the new.
Okay.
Okay.
My time's so big.
And that's where the road, that's the road that would then follow it. Okay.
Yeah, even if in the future, you know, they are able to either privately agree with the budding property to connect to Glazer Court, or something happens in the future. The property is still required to have 40 feet of frontage on an existing or proposed, public or private road. In this instance, that would be the existing Mountain View Road because they're not proposing any new roads internal to their development. So that new lot, needs to have frontage on Mountain View Road to be a conforming lot.
Thank you. Should we get to the recommendations or was there more in the application that you wanted to get to?
That's pretty much it. Thanks for noting that I forgot to include the two about the HDA. And I can shift this over to the Word document if we want to tweak any of the recommendations, 1 through 5.
Any other questions from the commissioners on this application? Okay, hearing none, sure, let's open up that list of recommendations.
Actually, I do have one more question. I'm just looking at the civil plan set and I know there's 3 different driveway connection points proposed, and that's not something that I think we're gonna be opining on today, but I'm just curious, which one is your favored?
I think preferred is the center one where it's just moved away from Glacier, the future Glacier Court, just in case we don't end up with the connectivity to their road.
It's a little bit more
A little
separate.
distance there, Public Works favors that.
Okay.
Bring it all the way over to my existing driveway. It gets pretty congested with all of our teenage drivers and it's just a lot to have
Yeah.
right there.
Yeah, okay, I was
Like
just
our front
curious.
windows, it's kind of weird to have.
Yeah,
Maybe
plus,
traffic
one
coming,
for
like,
the reason
Headlights
people wanna move
coming
to this
in
lot
and-
is privacy and then turning into our house to go to their big new house is.
I
Yeah,
think like our vision is to kind of have like a pocket, you know, with our 2 houses there.
okay, thank you.
So I was looking at the 3 drawings on the civil set, of
Mhm.
And it's the last one that has the driveway spaced a little bit further from Blazer Court.
Any other questions from the commissioners on this one? I guess on the first recommendation. How much actual? How much actual grading? Like, because of the length of that driveway, like, what is the total square footage of expected grading gonna be? And would that grading alone sort of trigger that habitat disturbance assessment? Have you sort of just done the math on that?
Like a Jacques.
Yeah, that might be, I defer to Jacques on that one. We did have a conversation about it and he calculated it based on, this area within the dashed yellow.
Yeah, so Emily provided, good morning, everybody. I'm Jacques, civil engineer. Emily provided the GIS data for that area, and what you see is a takeoff of the limits of disturbance within that area. So it's 0.43 acres as shown on the plan.
Okay, so that whole dashed yellow line is what you're considering to be the area of disturbance,
Disturbed, you know.
right?
In the SWHA.
Right,
So,
okay,
yeah.
so obviously that's super close to 0.5, but I can't help but notice that the dashed yellow line stops
Yeah. That's what I
Um,
was thinking.
halfway up through the driveway.
Right, that's where the mapped wildlife habitat area ends.
Okay, so you're saying that any of the grading
To the north.
to the north of that dashed line is not habitat, even though it's marked as the 50-foot buffer of the wetland?
Correct.
Yeah, I do want to point out that all of the wetlands here are managed under existing conditions. They are all being mowed routinely as is for agricultural use. Just so, and it's an open field. That's just to understand the character of this area. It's also directly in Scott's backyard. The blue area on the screen just to the left of the mound system, which is the rectangular feature, that's essentially a volleyball court. You know, just so we can understand what the lay of the land is today.
Okay, so the habitat disturbance area of a half an acre is only if the grading and excavation is within the SWHA.
Mhm.
Okay. I mean, that's a little bit unclear, I think, in this recommendation, honestly, because when I look at this recommendation, it looks like the whole property.
Yeah, if grading and excavation within SWHA is to exceed half acre, is that
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
suggesting it should
Yeah.
say? It doesn't look like you'll meet that threshold, but
Awfully close, though.
I think that this map shows a pull-off for the fire department, did you say?
Yeah, it will
And
shrink by
so
that.
it will shrink a little bit as well, but it's just a little.
So so is the question of disturbance, all the way to Mountain View Road, or is the question just within certain area to the right, to the north of this zone?
I think we've answered that, but Emily, if you want to answer that, I think.
Right, we're still calculating it from the SWHA line, which is so. The north half of the driveway is not included, the south half of the driveway
Okay.
is.
Mhm.
Yeah, and just for reference, the disturbance area that extends into the blue buffer, is 0.01 acres. So it's, very little additional if that is of interest. It's very little additional if we were to extend that line to the edge of the buffer.
Yeah, okay. I would definitely, I mean, we'll see this again, but I will say that we've triggered these, the rules are the rules, and so if the grading and the disturbance comes to that half acre within the SWHA, that'll require the HDA assessment. So it seems like, just be aware of that. So that driveway plan, I think, becomes pretty important to that.
Thank you. Yeah.
Is there any kind of consideration for the future outcome, like if this driveway does come up, connect over to Glazers in,
I think it was
5 years or something? Yeah, I
The
mean,
end goal.
like a temporary situation, I don't know if that's something that
they're looking at what it will be now, but if that does happen, it would shrink what we.
yeah, it would, that's my point, that was, so it's a temporary situation, hopefully.
Yeah.
That would be great, we kind of have to assume that whatever is
Right.
permitted is gonna be there forever and ever,
Yeah.
because that's the legal right you
Yeah.
gain when you get a permit.
You don't know,
Um,
you can't forecast the future.
And having a permit condition says, take the driveway away 5 years from now, just becomes untenable
Okay.
for the town to take
Yeah.
on. So
Mhm.
we wanna look at what's doable and feasible and approvable today and
Yeah.
assume it's gonna be there forever and ever. If at some point things can be shifted, terrific, or, if somebody 25 years from now says, I'd really like to take that one house in the back and make it 4 and Glazer Court's in existence, the town's in a position to say, okay, time to abandon that old driveway and shift the access. So
Mhm.
we're always kind of just incrementally working toward whatever the town's looking for, given what's proposed.
Mhm.
Gary has his hand up, dude.
Oh, yeah, thanks. Gary, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. I had some questions about the wetland and not only what's currently done in it, but future, what we would allow. Is it, it looks to me, I can't quite read it, but it looks like in some places it's class 2 and in some places it's class 3. Is that right, Emily?
Correct, so the wetland that has blue around it is class 2, and then there's 2 little islands of class 3 that are just shown with green.
And it sounds like I heard that currently there's agricultural use of much of the wetland. What's the extent of that at this time?
It's all hay right now, right? Or it's all
Okay.
mowed.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
So
not forested, only the back
Yeah.
is trees, the rest is a field.
Okay.
It's used
So
to be like
I-
when kids play soccer and
Yeah.
volleyball right now.
So I think that's fine now if it's used for agriculture. I'm a little concerned in the future if agriculture ceases. It seems like our history of treating wetlands and their buffer is there's no activity that if it wasn't for agriculture, that would be totally left alone, not allowing, any mowing or volleyball use or soccer fields or anything within the class 2 wetlands and their associated 50-foot buffers. Is that correct?
That's correct, so chapter 29 does list, allowed and prohibited uses in those wetland areas.
I just want to be certain that happens in the future. If ag use ceases, then this should go like it does in every other required wetland. There should be some kind of demarcation, and we would not allow any mowing or anything other than maybe hiking through those wetlands.
Yeah, so this is a good segue to recommendation number 4. My discussion says the WCC should discuss where and how wetlands should be delineated, particularly for the buffer on proposed lot 1 and driveway for lot 2.
Yeah, so what I would expect, if I may, David, what I would expect that discretionary permit is to see on the plan how the wetland areas will be marked off so that they can basically, the health of those wetlands can improve over time.
Yeah,
In terms of like wetland species coming in and things like that. And that will certainly help offset the added impact of having impervious surface from the driveway. That'll be an impact to you guys because you're used to that being open grass.
it's okay, it's less to mow. We're okay with
Maybe less
whatever's
management.
like, appropriate for single family lots, you
Mhm.
know, cause
Mhm.
the back lot, they're gonna be noting this to their own family to stay off of that. And they're not noting it to the general public or other neighbors. or
Right,
anything like
yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So whatever seems appropriate for that, what being we're
Yeah,
fine
for-
with doing.
For large developments, we've tended to do like boulders, but that's probably not appropriate for like individual houses. We've also done like fences, like picket fences. We've also done like birdhouses on posts spaced to
Yeah.
just kind of
Yeah,
like
that's
show
cute.
where it is. The tricky thing is making sure that it's something that in the future it would be obvious when the home sells or whatever. They don't have to go to the town and say, hey, what's going on back here? They would just go, oh, this is clearly like the edge of the wetland and there's like a physical structures marking it.
We're fine.
I would like,
Uh,
I
Go ahead,
want,
Todd.
yeah, thank you. I wanted to add about the demarcation because as you anticipate, we do have to get a wetlands permit for this project from the state wetlands program. And part of that permit did rely on us demarking a segment of the currently managed wetlands with 4-inch diameter cedar posts, 30 feet on center. So we're already doing that in
Okay.
a particular location. So I guess my preference would be to maybe do similar demarcation where where you guys deem it's necessary for this project.
Yeah, just for consistency.
Exactly, yeah. So everyone knows what they're looking for and what they're looking at when they are on the site.
And is that for the class 2 only?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, yeah. So class 3 is not regulated by the state of Vermont.
Yep.
And we're not proposing any impact to class 3, which are managed by the Army Corps of Engineers. But we are impacting class 2, and part of that is we provide mitigation, and so that is the discontinuing of management of a particular piece of wetland on the southwest corner of the property where the wetland stretches up into the field and it's currently mowed. It's just above the mound system that's on the page right here. You might, yeah, it's just a little to that green. There's a green finger that kind of comes out of the woods. It's essentially that. Nope, to the left a little bit.
That one.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's considered a higher value. That's just by the wetlands program than the stuff that's in the middle of the residential lawn. So that's why that area had been identified during our wetland application into the state.
And you don't mind not mowing that?
No, that's fine. I think that does make sense because it's connected to the wetter and to the forest and anything that's appreciating the wetland would tend to be in that back corner. So it makes sense to me.
Okay.
So you can see the forest line there, this squiggle.
Oh,
Yeah,
That's
it's kind of like a
existing forested hedge, yeah.
Soppy woods.
the soppy woods. Yeah. Yeah.
Fun for kids, I bet.
They don't really go in there a ton. I think they're like playing along the side
Mhm.
the most. like,
So-
over here.
To make sure that I'm clear, the state is requiring this most high value wetland in the back to have the cedar posts. And then the preference would be where our bylaw is saying, delineate the wetlands on lot one and along the driveway would be to also use the cedar posts.
Yeah, to extend the demarcation for that wetland feature between the two residences, similar to what's being done in the back corner.
There's an existing shed, within the 50-foot buffer right now. And so,
You're just looking at ortho.
yeah, it's also on the map. And so how would the placement of, how would the placement of cedar poles impact that? I mean, it's clearly an in-use part of your property. And so putting poles in front of your shed to say don't mow there just doesn't seem realistic to me.
I think we're more common to access that from the north side where our house is through the buffer than to go through the actual wetlands. So
Right,
maybe to bring the post in a way where we could just go to the front of it and stay off the wetland back there.
it's really just behind that shed to the south,
Right.
that is sort of,
But
Yeah, it's wetter back there.
Yeah.
They're not wrong with their mapping.
the posts would be along the edge of the blue though.
Right. Maybe leave
So-
a gap in the post just straight to the shed to minimize the impact.
Yeah,
for
so we
now.
need to, if we're gonna allow the shed to continue to be within that area, we would probably have to put something in the recommendations about like the shed can continue to be accessed from the north.
We
But
obviously
mowing
would
around the shed.
rebuild the shed there, but we probably would extend the life of this one
Yeah.
if permitted, yeah.
Yeah, and we could we say something about if the shed is ever replaced, it should be, accordance with bylaws, should be moved out of the buffer.
Yeah, I mean. The way nonconformity works in general would be if the shed went away for a year, it wouldn't be allowed to be rebuilt there. I'd be a little nervous about keeping track of a condition that said anything else, but. The language might be aspirational, but also then just let the sort of the standard way we deal with nonconformity. If
Take its course.
it goes away for more than a year
Mhm.
and you want to put in a new shed, you put it in compliance with the buffers.
Yeah, I think that can be handled with a condition and a notation on the plan.
Okay.
But we
Yeah.
can say, you don't have to put a post in front of your shed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
In front of the access door, thanks.
Yeah.
in front of the door.
I just had a quick question. Can we just move the shed?
It's
It's
an older permanent-ish
like a mini
structure.
barn kind of thing.
It's been there
I
a
don't
lot of
know.
years.
yeah, it looks pretty immovable from the. Google
Yeah.
map.
Yeah.
It's not a standard Home Depot thing. It's
If it fell down, I would
It's like
go
built
post and beam.
Yeah.
somewhere else. but-
Okay,
Legally.
thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
All right, so, let's go through these recommendations as they've just been updated for number 4. Well, let's start with number 1. So we've got that was the grading of within half an acre. That's the shift things north, maintain the hedgerow, so that's all in there. And now 4 that's being updated is demarcating the, class 2 wetlands.
Can you increase the zoom just slightly?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
I know I can barely read that, so I wonder if
I
others
can
can.
barely read it too, yeah.
Along the driveway with 4-inch cedar posts, okay? And the third recommendation is notation for the shed.
Yeah, as Matt said, do we need to even say if removed for more than 2 year or 1 year to be replaced? I don't think we even need that. I
If
think,
it's part of the standard bylaw.
You
Yeah.
don't have to say it, you can say it.
Okay.
consistent.
Or you could just say, the shed is note that the existing shed is non-conforming. And would, normal bylaw provisions around non-conforming structures would apply, or we could even reference the section bylaw.
Yeah, maybe say just the WDB for non-conforming.
Yeah.
Because if we change those, then it's not,
It's tied to it.
That makes sense to me.
Good.
and just Just so that they don't have to put a season post in front of it, should we just mention that? Oh, excluding the shed.
Access.
Excluding
Got
the
it.
shed.
Oh, okay,
Or,
good, good,
yeah,
good.
that's might be better, excluding shed access area.
Yeah, that's good, okay.
When we say shed access from the north, just to be clear that it shouldn't be like a path coming like along the wetland. I think it's gonna be obvious to you all, but yeah, people do weird things. Somebody in the future who buys your property might be like, oh, I'm just gonna have like I want this like nice curving path up to my shed. And it goes through the wetland.
Yeah.
Okay,
I just had something to add. I wonder, I don't know, I don't think it's in here, but should there be some kind of requirement that if agricultural use of these lands is ended, then, you know, the wetlands and the buffers be totally protected or not mowed or not managed?
They're not, I think, Gary, the understanding is they won't be managed, they won't be mowed or managed any longer.
Okay. I guess
As
I
of
missed
this, if it gets approved.
Oh, okay, great. Thank you.
is that your understanding?
That the wetland areas are, won't be mowed anymore, yeah.
So the uses allowed in watershed protection buffers, vegetation. It can remain in native or cultivated vegetation that serves an effective filter for surface runoff. And you can restore wetlands with a combination of wetland riparian forest or meadow vegetation appropriate for the site. Removal or cutting only for agricultural or forestry. For removal or cutting of live or dead vegetation is prohibited except where the buffer is used for accepted ag or forestry practices, or where a hazard tree is present or necessary to control invasive species. All native vegetation shall be left in place wherever possible. No lawns, no impervious surfaces, except for the minimum extent needed for the driveway. No outdoor storage and watershed protection buffers, no lawn chemicals. So you can still do quite a bit in the wetland buffer in terms of planting native species, working on a pollinator habitat meadow, removing invasives.
And mowing to control invasives as well, correct? If they wanted to mow to control invasives.
I would think so, where removal or cutting is prohibited. Except where ag or forestry practices, hazard trees, or necessary to control invasive species, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so if you had like a infestation of the poison parsnip or something, and you wanted to do a mow for a couple of years to get it to die down as part of a management plan, you could do that.
So right now, the applicants have turf grass in the wetland buffer. But not, it looks like in the wetland area itself. It looks like the wetland area is what's used as the haying or agricultural use, as I think we would come to describe it. So does this, yeah, thank you so much. That's helpful. So does this pre-app make any assumptions then that they're not mowing for turf along that bottom southern section, because that's all in the wetland buffer? Or can they continue that current use?
No. Because there's not invasives that are being managed.
Right, the southeastern corner there, where there's basically nothing. There would be a volleyball net there. We're fine with moving that if that's where we need to
Right, so once,
restore wetland, we can let that come back. It is basically a yard at this time, but it's we're flexible on that.
yeah,
It's a
so
big
once the
yard.
discretionary permit's approved and the plat gets recorded, that's when the wetland delineation post would need to go in place. And that's when any lawn that's beyond that would stop being mowed, and then habitat restoration activities, like a lot of people just get conservation mix and start tossing that to help the right things grow, so the grass doesn't take over with, invasives or just become a weedy mess.
Those lighter trees are apple trees that you can hardly make out, the two to the bottom right, that and above it.
I think that one in the corner too, where
So I don't know if those conveying wetland or?
They can remain.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yep, you don't have to like take out the apple trees or anything.
Yeah,
They
there's
can just
another
be
one by
there.
the shed too.
All right.
Okay, well, I just wanted to be clear that everyone is
Yeah,
on
and
the
if you
same
have,
page.
if you have questions about what, like after today, you're like, oh, I wonder like what we would do there, or I have an idea, just like contact the planning office and just see if it's suitable.
So you can remove or cut live or dead vegetation for accepted agricultural or forestry practices. So I would think where you need to maintain for the apple trees. That's apple trees are an agricultural product. So you can still, get to the apple
Yeah.
trees, make sure that they don't get choked out if you want to keep maintaining them.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, we like those. Maybe we would add more and that could be our agricultural endeavor.
Yeah,
you could
there's a
add
peach
additional-
tree back there too.
Nice.
Pretty nice.
Okay, good.
Great.
We do need to move on, so let's make a vote on this pre-application with the amended recommendations. Can I get a motion?
I'll move to approve the recommendations as drafted.
Great, thanks, Reed.
I'll second.
Thanks, Laura. Any further discussion on the motion? Okay, let's move. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any abstentions or objections? No, unanimous it is. Great. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah.
Thanks for being here bright and early.
Thanks for
Thank
your
you.
service.
Thank you, guys.
Good luck.
See you next Tuesday.
Yes, on to the next step.
Okay, we've got a big one on this next topic. It has been a while since our last meeting, so we've got a lot of updates to provide on the and thank you, Emily.
Thank you, guys. Nice to see you.
Emily.
Thank you.
Finally,
ERF ballot item. So as the commission will remember, we had the
Once in a room.
oh, it's cold season, you know what I mean? Everyone's coming home with something. 6 feet, right? That's what we used to do.
Get the stick out.
Get the stick.
You had a stick.
Yeah.
All right, so yeah, very, very active on last few weeks. It basically started with, I guess the evening before our last meeting, the council voted to request wording for a ballot initiative. So Reed and I got that email from Eric later in the day. And so we were sort of put on notice that was going to come. We got another follow-up email from Eric after asking for a review of that ballot initiative that the lawyers determined, I think probably like the next week. We got an early draft of the what is now going to be referred to as Article 6. I would call it like pretty cut and dry. It was basically, shall a half penny be raised? Or actually, before even that, we had to write a memo, didn't we, Reed?
Oh.
I have one the same color in my.
Oh, yeah, no worries.
You would have been cold. You would have been very cold leaving.
Thank you.
So before they could draft the ballot initiative, they needed a recommendation on the half penny. And so our unanimous vote for that half penny rate was very helpful. So we quickly put a memo together, sent it off to Eric Wells. That was, I have to go back to I have this all open in different tabs. So, excuse me. Let's see. So we sent that memo on January 17th. So 2 days after our meeting on the 15th. In that memo, we identified that we believe the half penny would raise approximately 100,000. That the cost would be roughly $15 per year or $1.25 per month. on an assessed value of 300,000.
In case I need to share.
The And then we also included, should the ballot measure fail, the select board should consider allocating any unassigned fund balance at the end of the fiscal year. Wishful thinking, I think, perhaps. But anyways, the main point was that the vote was very helpful. It was very timely because Eric basically asked for that recommendation by later that day. We submitted this memo on everyone's behalf with that authorization of the vote, and then we got the lawyer's write-up of it about a week later. It was very cut and dry of, shall a half penny be raised for the Environmental Reserve Fund? To which, after a quick review, suggested the addition of for the purpose of permanent protection and conservation of public land and open space in Williston, or something roughly to that extent. Eric liked that addition and sent it on to the lawyers, and the lawyers agreed. And so Reed and I were very happy with that.
Oh, yeah, at least it explains it a little bit.
Exactly.
Yes, it makes it a little bit less of a mystery item.
Yeah, because it really was sort of like a what is this kind of thing.
No way, yeah.
Right. I mean, so basically, my sort of takeaway from how the ballot initiative is written, and you can now read it on the town warning, is that it identifies how much money it's planning to collect. The lawyers calculate that it'll roughly be 110,000. I believe that's on the initiative, written on the initiative. Someone can confirm that. And that it's for the purpose of the Environmental Reserve Fund, for the purpose of permanent protection and conservation of public land and open space. It basically says exactly what it is. And so I think that if that town survey was worth anything, it means that 80% of the people who vote on March 6th, or whatever day that is, should approve it. Because it's very clearly worded and it's very much in line, and in my mind, it's not all that expensive in the context of the point of town meeting day. So I'm hopeful. I'm feeling pretty good about it. Reed, what did I miss over the last, I don't know, feels like 4 years, but God, I only wish.
Yeah, I guess. It was not looking as though we were gonna get any more money than last year. In the budget. I was honestly surprised that it survived the budget mayhem last year and didn't get cut even further. So when the select board, basically said, would you be willing to take this risk that you don't get anything? It felt like, yeah, the answer is, I mean, even if we succeed one of the next 3 years, we'll still come out ahead. So, and the only way to find out whether people will vote for something is to put something out for vote. So I think that's just kind of some of the background context about why the feedback David and I gave to the select board was, yeah, let's keep moving forward if you're willing to do this. And I saw Gary had his hand up.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Gary, no more.
I just had a quick question. Now, is this going to be a permanent thing, or are we going to have to vote on this every year? How does that work?
Annual.
Yeah, so our advice from our attorneys is that the voters in 1 year can't vote to burden the grand list of the set of voters that might come in years following. And so any of these penny items would need, penny or half cent items like this would need to be voted on each year before they're put into place. That's not the way it works where I live in South Burlington.
Yeah, that's what I thought, yeah.
But as our attorney said to us, I'm not South Burlington's attorney. I'm just advising you on what I think is right. But that said, I think, this is a really interesting thing. I don't think Williston's ever done this sort of kind of line item for open space before.
Someone mentioned through the context of all of this that they had to have put it to ballot
probably back in 1988, in order to get the environmental reserve fund started.
To create it,
To
yeah.
create it. Yeah, they can't just create this
Yeah.
fund without voter authorization.
The way you would vote for something that would be longer term would be if you were voting to bond. You know, if you had an open space
Yeah.
bond of $5 million, you said, we're gonna vote for this and then we're gonna pay it off. You know, we're just gonna have to pay it off. You're committing future, but you're not committing a specific burden on the taxpayer like these percentage items are. So that said, it'll be really interesting to see how this goes. I think this could be a model for a couple of other things. We've talked about wanting to see some funding streams for like bike ped infrastructure or housing trust fund, and see how the voters of Williston respond to this idea of like, oh, I'm voting for my municipal tax rate, and then I have a choice over this add-on for this thing that all of our public outreach says people are very supportive of open space. So here's the bill. Are you willing to pay the bill? And
It should pass. I mean,
yeah,
just like school buses pass.
right.
School buses pass, but school budgets don't. I mean, yeah, Laura.
Does it say in the article that it is just for the
Yeah.
year?
It doesn't, so I'll get to this in 1 second,
Okay,
but let's just read the article.
oh yeah, let's do that.
Article 6, shall a tax of 1/2 of 1 cent be assessed on the grand list with the proceeds estimated to be 110,000 to be deposited into the town's environmental reserve fund for the purpose of permanent preservation and protection of open space areas and public lands within the town of Williston, ? So that will be a yes or no vote.
Mhm.
And no, it does not include the 1 year. And this was raised to me by Jason, the editor at the Williston Observer, is why does the article not have the time limit on it? Just like all of the select board members of 3 years and, board of listers, 3 years, blah, blah, blah. I said, that's a really good question for the town lawyer.
I mean, can we ask the lawyer and have them,
Well, it's warned. I mean, this is.
it's warned, so that's it, okay.
Yeah. And honestly, I'm okay with it I'm okay with this because my candid hope is that this will be approved by a wide margin. It will sort of reset the baseline. It will be baked into the tax rate. This isn't going to be like a separate line item on everyone's tax bill. It's just going to be baked into that overall cost. And the select board can then say like, okay, well, we approved it last year, we should approve it again this year and just bake it into the budget. Because at that point, it doesn't change the tax rate to continue funding it at that level, basically.
Yeah, the both options are still on the table. You could continue to have it be a separate ballot item, or you could say, voters approved this last year, just put it into the operating budget at that level.
Right.
It won't change the overall tax.
Technically, though.
No, but when they present the operating budget, they'll have to show that the operating budget is up.
Right. So what that's in reference to is that the 1/2 of 1 cent on the grand list value. The grand list value is projected to go up a little bit every year, and so 110 should become 115 or 120 over time. And so if the select board just takes the 110 and just flatlines it again, then we're not keeping up.
Yeah.
And so we as the board, as a commission, really need to look at the results of the election, because if it really does come in 80-20 in favor, then it might be worth considering to just keep it on the ballot at 1/2 penny, because then it would sort of keep up. But if it's close in any way, then, we're sort of, we're back to where we started from if it's close.
Okay, and there are no other articles that say 1/2 penny for
No,
anything else?
no,
Okay.
it's just the general fund, and it's just this, and then all of the election of the typical names.
Okay.
Well, not typical names, but typical positions. Okay, So Reed and I were hoping to spend the rest of our time on this topic, not the rest of our time, because we do have the Winooski Valley Park District with an update. They're slated for 8:40. So we do have a fair bit of time to talk about what outreach would look like. So in the January meeting of the select board, they asked us if we would be sort of willing to support education for this article so that if people want to know about it, that they can find information about it. So Reed and I just came up with a very quick plan over the phone after the article was warned that I would reach out to the Observer. He has some web tools. So I have an update on that. I got in touch with Jason at the Observer, as I sort of mentioned. He was very interested in putting an article together. I had a great conversation with him on Monday night. And we talked for about half an hour or so. I offered to put him in touch with either landowners that had taken advantage of the ERF or Conservation Commission members, and he said he's not going to get into any of that. It's really just going to be a straight, like, this is what the ballot initiative is. It's not going to be like a interest story or anything like that. And he wanted to get it out this week, and so that was sort of the timeliness of it. So he's going to try, now that it's been warned, he's going to get the story out. So hopefully that will be in the Thursday.
This Thursday
Should be Thursday's edition. That means it could go online as early as tonight, which means that, and hopefully it's good. Hopefully I didn't. It's been a while since I had any formal press training, but I have had press training, so
That's pretty good.
I kept to my message box. But hopefully it'll be good, and hopefully it'll be a tool that we can actually turn into things like front porch forum posts to say, hey, this article is out there, look for the Observer, and here's a link, and that was sort of what you and I started thinking about, is like that should really be our mid-February approach. But then Jason told me that they actually have a prohibition in their rules that they will not post stories about articles after February 17th. So
you mean letters to the editor?
letters to the
It-
editor.
Oh, okay. That
Yeah.
answers my question. Okay.
So letters to the editor would have to be in by the 17th of this month
Yes.
or bust.
Or bust. So we could either look at it from one of two ways. Hopefully article is solid and we can do that. Maybe one letter to the editor from a commissioner. Maybe, and then to have that be that with the Observer, and then do a lot of posts on Front Porch Forum as really our only other sort of means for getting information out there. But anyways, I don't need to get into recommendations. I really just wanted to sort of, that's like an information dump on all of that. Any other updates or questions?
I don't have any updates, but that sounds like amazing work. Nice job, Dave and Reed. You guys have been super busy on this stuff over the past few weeks. That's also good to know about the February 17th. So you said that was the February 17th issue of the Observer. So we have,
Last date for submission is February 17th.
so we have
Which
two more.
Yeah, which
Just
means
trying to
that
look at the
a
calendar.
letter to the editor, a letter to the editor would be in the 20th.
Yep.
But was
Yep.
Jason Starr saying that they don't post letters to the editor about election stuff after that issue?
Yep.
Is that what he was saying?
Okay.
Yeah, 2 weeks.
So we have
So
two
that-
more. So we have this week. So that it'll be in this week's Observer with your
Okay.
interview that you did, and then we have potentially two more issues that we could
Yeah,
submit
if we
letters
got
to
one
the
in
editor.
immediately, maybe on the 13th, something could
Mhm.
appear.
Okay.
We may need to reply to some other letter to the editor.
Yes. there is absolutely potential if somebody's gonna write a letter in opposition to
Mhm.
a new funding item.
I'm gonna break
Yeah,
out
I
my
was-
media training and say responses to letters to the editor are not necessary. It's just a chance for you to
Yeah.
revisit your message box.
Got it.
And don't get pulled into the swirl of the like, well, I said this and you
Oh,
said
yeah,
that,
yeah,
and
that
yeah,
Front porch forum thing.
right.
That's I agree 100%, particularly on Front Porch Forum, and I do think it might be good to, you know, we'll see. I guess we should see what the article this week says, but do one letter to the editor maybe for next week's issue that just talks about why it's important to conserve land in Williston. And then maybe we could do a second one that does something that talks about debunking myths about land conservation or something like that, to address naysayers out there about land conservation.
I think that, I mean, message wise, that resonates. I expect that the article, the Observer article is mostly gonna deal with the sort of like very tactile. This is what you're voting on, this is what it goes towards. There are properties like Catamount that have been used for it. I sent Jason both of the memos, both the first one that was submitted with our 150,000 budget request that we worked on this fall. And then also the memo that Reed and I put together after our last meeting on the 17th. And I think that will be the extent to which the Observer article will really get into like the nature of it. And so we're missing that huge piece about like, okay, but like, what is the value of that, right? Like, what lands have we preserved? Like Catamount, Krantz, Sipple. I think that's a huge opportunity for us to say, you know, Five Tree, if we used it for that. That is to me the missing story that the Observer is not going to get into in this story, and that we should probably focus on in those letters to the editor and the Front Porch Forum. Okay.
I just put up on the screen, something that I started and I've been making edits to, which was just to create a skeleton that we could maybe do some quick brainstorming on. If we just come up with like bullet points of content that we want in here, I'm happy to write up the content after the fact. But this would be the content that we could consider putting on a page on the town website. We cannot advocate for a position, but we can share information about what the URF is, what it's used for, why the funding level that's being requested is being requested. Like what's the logic that went into requesting a half penny. So basically we can provide information. Then if we want to post as ourselves on Front Porch Forum, we can always link to this and say there's a lot of information about it. But what I want to share is, and share whatever your personal perspective is about the article and why you're going to vote, how you're going to vote as a citizen of Williston. So, so this seems like it could be, if the article, it perhaps is not everything we would like it to be in terms of being comprehensive, or maybe it doesn't emphasize the pieces that we would like it to emphasize. Posting our own webpage like this would allow us to make sure that all of the points that we want covered are there. So I basically just put in the article text. Make this a little bit bigger because it's. So I basically just put in the article text. There's the article. If you go to the town website and click on Town Meeting Day 2025, you can see all the articles and items. And then I tried to summarize in, is this 2 sentences? What is changing? Funding for land conservation and permanent trail connectivity has been part of the town's operating budget, but funding has not kept up with appreciation of property values and the Williston Conservation Commission's requested funding levels. Article 6 funds the Environmental Reserve Fund at the level that WCC recommends. And I didn't put it here. It needs to change to say as a direct vote, separate from the operating budget. So trying to have something simple about what's changing. And then it seemed like we would want to highlight, to David's point, you know, what has the ERF done for us lately? Might be the heading of this section. You know, that it was created in 1990. Here's a link to there's a page on the website that outlines like the manifesto for the fund. Like, the fund is being created, this is why it's being created, this is what it can be used for. And then just a simple statement about the fact we tend to get $2 of value for every $1 expended. We've done the math on that. And we might want to explain where the other money comes from. And then I started to list some past projects. And I would love suggestions on things that would be notable that the ERF has been used on.
What about, sorry, I didn't raise my
Go
hand.
ahead.
Go ahead.
What about fees? Like Dan Boomhauser finally has his piece of land conserved, right? So and we said we'd be happy to help him pay for the attorney fees to do that. Can we put something like that in there? That we can help landowners pay attorney fees for paying their.
Yeah, I think what's important for folks in town to understand is that it's not just buying land.
Right.
But that oftentimes the ERF fund can be used to provide an assist. So getting appraisal work done, when somebody might be entering into a conservation agreement with a land trust, or dealing with surveying. You know, there's a lot of technical things that might need to happen when someone's looking to set up conserved land, or often ERF money, like with Catamount, is a piece of the funding puzzle that helps, and might even, you know, might even be the case that land conservation wouldn't happen but for the use of some ERF monies. You know, those are all things to just highlight for folks. Just the other thing I would say, I was looking at our sort of land conservation draft chapter in the town plan, and you know, we're doing these shortened chapters where we start with, here's three things you ought to know about this topic, here's three things the public told us about this topic, and three things you ought to know about open space in Williston. Is, you know, about 16% of the land area of the town is conserved. Another thing to know is that, you know, broadly in our town plan engagement, people are very supportive of continuing to conserve open space. The last point that I haven't done the number on yet, but Melinda and I talked about yesterday, is, well, how many more acres are out there on that ERF priority list that are not conserved? And I think continuing to, you know, as was done with Wild About Williston last year or 2 years ago, communicating that there is still land in Williston that is not conserved, that is desirable to be conserved. You know, so somebody looks at the map and says, well, isn't it all built out? Didn't we already save everything we could? Well, no, there is opportunity out there, and just you know, letting people know that there continues to be opportunity to add to the town's portfolio of conserved land and achieve important comp plan goals by doing so. So,
and like, did you know that open space parcels are not conserved? That's, I think people see open fields or tracts of forest and they think, oh, it's conserved, but it may not be. It may just currently be a forest, but it may not always be forest unless conservation easements are placed on the land.
Right.
So there's Gary has a hand up. I shouldn't have jumped in front of him.
Go ahead, Gary.
I just wanted to say, I've got the list here from the town of all the expenditures out of the ERF over the years. And there's substantially, you know, there's probably 15 different things we've spent money on. So if I could put those together, Reed, and send you a list, and you could either use them all or pick and choose which ones you think are appropriate.
Yes, that would be great. And I would bounce it up against the Wild About Williston slides that Simon. Was it Simon? Yes,
yeah,
it's hard to remember. That Simon walked through, because I know he didn't cover all of them, but he picked out some key ones and some key facts about them. So I'm sure I can pull from his presentation. In fact, I could probably link to that presentation in here.
Yep. Gary, you're looking at that list right now.
Yes.
And I'm looking at the last clause that we just added, and to provide financial assistance for property owners. And like, that is a really, that kind of hangs out. I think, how would you characterize that financial assistance? Like, would it be for like technical assessments, for mapping? Like, how would you
For
sort of
appraisals.
Yeah,
appraisals,
appraisal.
anything?
I'm seeing one here for boundary surveys.
Yep.
Let's see. There's not a lot of details on what the money was used for in the list that I have. It's just a property owner or a project that we spent money on. So I guess it's basically purchase development rights, appraisals, those boundary um, surveys, that kind of thing. I mean, I don't think we've spent any of the money, even though we're allowed to. I don't think we've spent it on purchasing like trail easements or anything yet. But I could be wrong on that. But that would be another thing a positive thing for this that I'm sure you've thought to list, Reed, which is, the trail system that results from many of these properties that we purchased that are heavily used.
Yeah, I like that. That's in there right now. That's in
Okay,
the
good. Yeah.
what's changing portion or wherever that is. Where is that? Where did you put that?
Somewhere,
Oh, history of the ERA.
yeah,
So I would just maybe add provide financial assistance for property owners to go through the legal process of
Yeah.
protecting land.
I was gonna say, I think there needs to be a little context there.
Yeah.
yep, yep. Yeah. I just said the unfinished thought,
Yeah.
to get the legal
Yeah.
process to.
And I think matching
Permanently
outside money is an important piece.
It is, I agree 100%, Gary. I worry that point is lost on people who don't live in the Grants world.
Well, maybe it could be put in a different way. I know we had a list that Carl used to show all the time that showed here's how much money ERF spent, here's how much was kicked in. The fact that by using ERF, we like tripled as matching, we
Okay.
were a result of it is that we end up with 3 times more money than ERF or something like that.
Yep.
I don't know how easy that would be to put together. I don't have those figures in front of me that would show.
I think I have them from Wild About Williston, and we haven't made an
Good.
ERF expenditure since, so they are still
Great.
current.
Yeah, I think that's an important piece.
And it's going to be a little bit of a balancing act, because if you put 100 facts on a web page,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
you lose people. So when it comes, just don't be surprised if when it comes down to it, we may need to trim some, not because they're not important, or maybe they go in like a little appendix at the very bottom of the page, like other things you might, if you're really interested in other things to know about the ERF, because
I think it could be
running out of
even in the text, just saying using ERF money, we were able to triple the whatever the number is. But I think they're
Gary, that sounds like a good letter to the editor. Given your history and long standing on this commission, I think speaking to that personal experience is going to be a lot more powerful than having it be a factoid on this sheet. I think you would be, I would think as a longstanding member would be first in line. I would like to see for a letter to the editor or a front porch forum post to that extent. Would you be willing to write something and submit under your name?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's an important piece. I think so. Should I call? What was his name? Jason, you said?
No, you can actually just submit it to him.
Okay.
And just send him an email with the header as a letter to the editor, and submit it to him anytime before the 17th, and he will publish it. And I think if we could, because especially as the financial manager of the of the Conservation Commission, you could even say that. But to the I think it would be great to have a main theme of yours being, look, this money has a multiplying effect for our community. We're not just beholden to it alone.
I was trying to see if it was easy to show you the letter to the editor. Here we go. Submissions and letters to the editor. So yeah, if you go to willistonobserver.com and go to the contact us page, it has the 300 words or fewer, blah blah blah. It has all the requirements there.
So I think if I was to write that, I'd take the tack of, you know, there are many values to advancing the ERF, but here's one that maybe you didn't think about type thing, and just focus more on the multiplying effect of the money. And maybe, does that make sense as opposed to outlining all of the values?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's not many investments out there that return a 1-to-1.
Right, yeah.
I guess that would be a good angle to take.
Right.
Yeah.
And then I think
So Reed, I don't know, maybe I don't know if I can out to get those exact facts, but you said there might be some in the thing that you and Simon put together for the Wild About Williston.
Exactly. Let me see if I can, while we're talking about who else might be willing to. I think, David, the intention was we would like to create a little bit of a schedule of like who's going to write a letter to the editor, who's going to try to do it this week. Are we going to try to also submit one next week? And then for Front Porch Forum, let's not all post on the same day. If we're going to post, let's kind of sprinkle it throughout. Was the idea.
Exactly. I think that I would love to see Laura and Eric, you know, also try to get something in, given your roles on the commission, and as a, you know, naturalist, I think you've done those kind of like nature walks at Catamount, you did the Wild About Williston. If you could maybe speak to like, so one of the things the memo sort of said, and it was something that's going to totally go over Jason, is the 30 by 50.
Yeah, the 30 by 30 and 50 by 50.
Yeah, but I think our commission's goal is 30 by
50. Yeah.
Is 30 by 50. And I think, like, why is that something that, like, why is that important? Why is conservation important? And like, what does that do for the town? That would, to me, would be great.
Yeah, I can do that.
Awesome.
Okay, so not for, maybe for the week after next week. If Gary's doing next.
I like the idea of having, I mean, if we get the article in then for this week, and then the next due date would be Monday at noon. So we should get someone in over the weekend. That's basically how I would sort of frame it up. So it'd be either you or Gary or Eric. Which one do we think would be most important? I almost think that yours would almost fit nicely with the like, why is this out there? So like thematically, like what is the value? And then maybe Gary, you could follow it up with the multiplier the following weekend. Would that schedule work?
I have him this weekend, so it's a little tough, but I could do it if Gary can't.
Yeah, I think I've got some other work commitments for the end of this week, so I probably couldn't do anything by Monday, but I certainly could do the following Monday.
I'll do something by Monday then.
Okay, thank you.
It's 300 words, so
Yeah. It's not that long. Okay.
And,
so
you can call me, Laura, if you want to chat with somebody to refine your thought process.
Okay, yeah, thanks.
I pick up phone calls.
So I do see what you're putting up there, Reed. That'd be valuable.
Yeah, so
I can get to this on the town website, right?
Yeah, I just Googled Williston, Wild About Williston, Vermont. And so this is the page. It's under Natural Resources Wild About Williston on the website. And it has at the bottom, it has conservation planner presentation. It also has maps and boards, which I think is like where is there conserved land in Williston as a result of the ERF. Oh, this was never mind. This was an activity in the room where people listed their favorite trails and conserved spaces. This one has map of conserved spaces and people's markings on it, and then places that should be preserved. So people marking places they'd like to see conserved. And ideas for conservation. So these were results from that event. But anyway, all of it's on that Wild About Williston website. And then there was a significant script, which I can send you the link to, Gary. That was the talking points that Eric, was it you and me, that Eric and I shared at the event. And I can send you those talking points because they had some details that were not included in the PowerPoint presentation from Simon.
Okay, that'd be helpful. Yeah, appreciate that.
Thank you, Reed.
Yeah.
So, Laura will submit a letter by February 9th. That's Sunday night. Gary is signing up for the next week. Letter to the editor by February 16th, Sunday night. Eric, how do you see yourself as part of this solution?
I mean, I'd be happy to write. Is Jason only going to publish one letter to the editor on this topic per issue?
Well, depends on if we flood the zone or not.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be happy to write another letter to the editor with a focus on, on that concept I pitched earlier about myth busting for land conservation, or something like that. Or I can do a few front porch forum posts. I have no idea if there's. I'm not on Facebook, so I don't know if there's Facebook groups in town that maybe would work. That would be good to post to as well.
My wife tells me that Facebook Williston Parents is still active.
Do they let?
There's very specific rules on that one about when and what you can post about, though, especially in terms of like
I just
political
that's such a
things. So I think I sort of think Front Porch Forum would be the good place for us to.
Yeah. What do you think your message would want? What would you want to say, Eric?
On Front Porch Forum or in the Observer?
Let's assume Front Porch Forum. I think that is reasonable.
So I feel like those should be short, quick posts, nothing too verbose. I know that when I start reading get into Front Porch Forum and see somebody's post that gets really long, I just get through it usually.
Too long didn't read.
Yeah. And that's not, Anyway, I think, I could do a few and draft up a bunch that either we could do as commissioners or I could share with friends to post about just about what each household, not even each person, but what each household will get for $1.25 per month for this investment in their town.
Yeah,
and again, I can do some more, I can try and put together some myth busting kind of things for Front Porch Forum posts.
What do we think? How much do we need to get onto Front Porch Forum? Because that could be something that either all of us could participate in, like if Eric, if you wanted to give us like themes that we could hit on, like there's probably like 20 themes, which would be too much. So if we could do like 5 themes and all of us do one post, I could sign up for that. I've never posted on Front Porch Forum. I'm sure I'll screw it up. But I think that, that would be my suggestion. I don't think we need to necessarily have one person flooding the zone.
What's good on Front Porch Forum is to just originate your own post.
Yep.
Always, rather than
Right.
replying, because then you write the headline.
Yes.
Right.
And there's some separation that way. And yeah, it's like you were saying before, it's not a great place to engage in an argument with anybody.
No.
Just give people facts. It's the best thing you can do is just steadily sprinkle those facts out into that dialogue, especially if, in what we've typically seen in the run up to town meeting is there is some dialogue about, oh, my taxes are too high, we should vote this budget down, here's why, and whether the locus of people's angst ends up being school funding or the town or a particular thing in the town budget. Who knows? But the best thing you can do is just originate your own posts and give people facts.
Mhm.
That's really helpful, Matt. Thanks for both the reminder not to,
Yeah, do not engage.
do not engage.
Just let other people do that. It's, yeah, it can be really frustrating, but
This is fiscal year 2026 budget. is that right?
yes.
Okay, and are these daily now? Cause I don't seem to have one from yesterday, but I've got one from February 3rd.
Front Porch Forum comes out usually daily, but if there are a lot of
It
posts,
could be two. in a
there
day.
might be 2 in a day.
Oh, okay,
Should
So
be
if things really heat up.
Okay.
Yeah.
all right. Yeah, I mean, I kind of like that idea of if we we are gonna have to let Winooski Valley, take on the agenda in 5 minutes, but if we could find a handful of Front Porch Forum topics that we can then assign, that might be the way to do it. Do we want to do that? Eric, do you just want like to send us all an email? Can we do that? As commissioners, can you, I guess you can send a document and say, these are the topics.
We have collaborated on on Google Docs in the past, usually in the context of writing our piece for the town
That's how we
report
should,
each year.
that's how we should do it then. Let's do a Google Docs with a bunch of Front Porch Forum topics, like not getting into too many details, but just topics that either one of us could write like 100 words on, and then sign up for one or more of those topics, and then just sort of find a slot over the next 2 to 3 weeks to make that post. And if you want to commit to a date, then in that Google Docs, then that might help us coordinate a schedule for it.
All right,
Yes,
I can set
people
that up.
put a date- If people could put a date in their name next to a topic when they're gonna post about it, that would make sure we don't
Yeah,
annoy people with like 3 posts on the same day.
totally.
Mhm.
So yeah, so like 3 columns, like topic, name, expected date of submission, and
You want me to create that file now and share it?
I think we'll let Eric do it.
Okay.
You
I can do it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
you've done a bunch, Reed. I can do it.
Spread the
Yes, that helps with my overwhelming feeling in my brain. So I will flesh this out further. Thanks for all those suggestions on things to include. I'll flesh this out further, and then Matt, who can help me get the text posted to, it'll just be text with links, I think.
Just send it to me and let me know where you want it to go.
To rest under the thing, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Would it be under the Conservation Commission, like a Wild About Williston, or would it be like an Article 6 info sheet?
I can talk to Eric about that. I think there is typically some just like ballot information, fact
Okay.
sheet kind of stuff.
Great.
So I can ask him if there's a more information about ballot item that can live in the sidebar on the main page. I'll see what he wants to do.
I think
So-
having that link active for the front, especially for the Front
To
Porch
link,
Forum
yeah.
posts is important. Less important for the LTEs, letters to the editor. So yeah, I would say if we could get that up in the next week or so, then we'd have an active link. We can start doing Front Porch Forum posts.
Similar to how we have natural resources with a menu, I guess my question, Matt, would be when somebody hovers over town meeting 2025,
Right.
could it pop out with an option to say, would you like to see Article 6 information page or Article 6 ERF?
Yeah,
I would hate for us to be the only
the only thing.
thing
What
that pops.
happens
Well-
when you click on that right now?
Right
Yeah.
now, it just takes you to a page. There you go.
So
And
it's basically like how to vote.
how to vote, and then it has the warning, the fiscal year budget, the capital budget plan. it seemed to me like it was kind of like these things.
Yeah,
So it could also just be that we just put it under natural resources and 2020 fiscal year 2026, Article 6, and then we just link it at the bottom of this town meeting 2025. I'll let you make that judgment call with Eric on what's appropriate. And I will do that by Monday.
Great.
So that when you come in on Monday, Matt, you'll have the content ready to go.
Thanks, Reed. And I'm happy to
Yeah,
collaborate with you on that. From this afternoon.
it's already much closer than when I came today, so it's good. I added links to ERF stuff and I found the Wild Wild Williston content, so I think it's getting closer.
Great. I would include in that 2 links to our memos. Just, you know, I
Okay,
think
yep.
in case that's not totally obvious, but I think
Yeah,
I've got PDFs of those 2 memos in my inbox.
and they would be, those memos would be attached to select board meeting dates on the website. They should be, the PDF should be
They
on the website.
should
So I'll
be,
find them
but
and,
Jason was having a hard time finding them.
okay,
Yes,
I'm pretty good at Googling.
Yeah.
I'm sure you are. It's better than site search.
Okay, anything else that the commission wants to cover, on this topic? It's gonna be over, I think by the time we meet next, so it's a lot going on, or no, that's not true, I think
So we will meet.
we have
on
one more meeting,
the 19th.
Great.
yep.
So, by the 19th, your letter to the editor should have gone out.
Yeah,
Gary's
Gary should have too,
should have too.
or no, Gary's will be the next day.
Well, Gary's
Yeah.
will be coming up and will have been submitted.
Yeah,
And then should we wait to do front porch forum posts until after the 19th so that we're not like,
that's kind of what I think, yeah,
let the letters to the editor go and then
Yeah.
follow it up? Okay.
yeah,
So at the next meeting, we can finalize, make sure that we're deconflicted on who's sending when.
okay,
okay.
that works. Perfect, great job.
Thanks, David, for all the corralling on this. It's gonna be exciting whatever happens.
It is.
I can tell you that.
I don't know why I thought that I thought we were in the second half of February already. It just speaks.
It's just
to-
that the early voting starts,
Yeah,
I don't know, it's the 10th or something here in February, so people technically can get their ballot and drop it off. But I don't think many people are gonna be early voting for this election
no,
round, because it's not.
especially since there's so much information in the overall budget that like,
Yeah,
yeah.
okay, I will stop sharing and
Sweet.
we can talk about Winooski Valley and grants.
Great, thanks everyone. Hey, Tim.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Um,
And Nick is here too. Great.
Morning.
Morning.
All right, so you guys sent us a nice document, linked on our agenda. Always super helpful to see that. Gives some permanence to what we're doing here. Building the public record for the updates, so thank you. Do you guys want to just walk through what your update is for us this month?
sure. I guess, ultimately we still sort of are on like a holding pattern. But Nick had reached out to Nathan Fisk, was the Global Foundries contact who did the walk with us back in, I guess, October, November. And he let Nick know that he was not purposely ghosting him and that he basically is, he's waiting on Global Foundries and their lawyers to proceed with the town and the solar panels there. But, he assured us that he was going to be pushing it forward as soon as he could possibly do it. And that was where we had left with him. Haven't heard back from him again over the last, month. On our end, what we did make a little progress, just researching a little bit more. Allison Brown is with Velco, who we've worked with in the past. She's, I don't know if she's with real estate there or just the right of way coordinator, but, we have some relationship with her from out at Colchester Pond and a few other areas. Um, but basically, the path, the current path that's out there goes sort of right underneath the power lines, the trail where it is. With her and Velco, it would be, I guess, a conditional use of the right of way. We'd sort of have to be filling out and submitting. She didn't seem to think there would be any red flags with it. I guess even seeing as though it's sort of a trail there already underneath their power lines. More just like if there was like an emergency or something that, she said that the keeping the lights on would be, more important than our trail use at certain points in time. But we
Crazy.
certainly haven't, really run into many issues with that throughout the time.
I think utility people are just trained to say that at the end of like every sentence. It's basically like, this is how we like to do it. But when we got to keep the lights on, we got to keep the lights on.
For sure.
Yeah.
We also reached out. She had provided William Jakubowski, I guess goes by Jake, with He's Green Mountain Power, similar to her role at Velco. And that was more in regards to sort of where I had the trail sort of ending a little bit on the end of the Jacobs parcel. When we were out there on that hike, we sort of followed it down a little bit further, and it got to sort of a nice flat viewing area, like a really nice, I guess, say bird wildlife watching area where you were looking out at the river a little bit more there. But that's on GMP land along the river there. So we basically, I was sort of checking in with him about their policy and if we would be able to, officially use that little section of their land on the trail there. And he's going to get back to us, was reaching out to their, I guess, director of generation there. That land, which I'm hopeful that that will be okay as well. It's not really near any of the facilities. It almost opens up the idea for like in the future, because I don't know if you'd be able to hike all the way from there up to where, some of the Essex portage is, and, Green Mountain Power currently has that other, spot at the dam there that's like a recreation facility. So my hope is, at least we can get down to that lower area, and then, throughout time, maybe it would be explored more a little bit further up the way.
Yeah, I'm really glad you mentioned that, Tim, because my kid was actually at the Global Foundries for a Lego robotics competition, and I've never gone in that entrance from Essex, but they have that boat launch right there. And it's actually before the gatehouse. And so it's totally open and it's available for the public. And, granted, it's the middle of winter, but like it's got a pretty sizable parking lot. I think, that would be a really cool idea to think about, like that whole like public access frontage to the reservoir there is like almost like a combined, I don't know, not combined use, but like because that's clearly owned by GMP and they maintain it for their own, it's got the GMP logo on it. There's also the public access park on the Williston side of the dam that also has a GMP park logo on it. So I like the idea of like sort of thinking about that as a combined concept of public use area.
And I think, as part of their permitting in a lot of those spaces, I don't know, we worked with them at one point over at Salmon Hole, but I guess there's like the FERC permitting, but some of that allows, you're supposed to allow like recreational use in these areas, which I'm sure that's sort of what they're doing by having that Essex parcel. But hopefully they would be intrigued by more use. I know they did have plans for other development up on 2A there where we had looked at that other parking lot. So I don't know if that will worry them a little bit, but yeah, something to look at in the future for sure.
Have we ever looked at like, is that GMP continuously owned property from the dam all the way to the Jacob Krantz parcel itself?
I believe right along the shore there is. There's other land that looks like it has some trails in it that come off some of those like housing units that are back there, or the I wouldn't say housing units, but condos or whatever they are. So there's sort of like, unmaintained trails that are out of GMP, but you know, it all sort of does run together, which is pretty cool. But yeah, GMP is all along the shore there. They are required to continue to own that land. At one point, we weren't sure if that was something that they didn't need to own as much as they used to, but sounds like they aren't getting rid of that. Just from one quick question I had with them there, but
No, definitely not. Definitely not.
They have to
But,
own what they could flood. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point, right? Yeah, that's great. You know, I'm looking at your memo too, and I'm realizing that if we want to post this publicly, Tim, you've got Jacob's email in that memo. And so we probably want to take his email off of the publicly noticed document.
Yeah, we can do that.
sure, yeah, I can black that out or something too.
Yeah,
and then I
and
just
that-
sort of had at the end down there, I don't know, you know, I know we're in this holding pattern that we hope to get out of at some point, but you know, just in the interest of like, you know, keeping momentum going and things like that, you know, we had been discussing a little bit about a spring opportunity. I had seen in some of your guys' other minutes some stuff about you know, trying to get some more invasive work done, this weed warrior type program.
yeah,
But you know, that might be something nice to try to, you know, partner on, maybe not the whole program, but I was just thinking something around like Earth Day maybe in April. You know, getting out there and doing some type of invasive removal. It might be a good way to get some support going for the efforts you guys are trying to put in. I forgot there's a volunteer or someone that you guys work with in your town there quite a bit, it looks like. I sort of forgot what his name was, but he
Nick,
sounds
you're
like
probably thinking of my dad, Chapin.
mhm.
on that. Yeah,
Yeah.
but you know, if Chapin, you know, it could be something if he was interested in like teaming up on like an Earth Day event. You know, we could get out there and do some kind of, you know, buckthorn, honeysuckle removal just as a couple hour thing someday would be sort of fun.
Yeah, it sounds like if we could organize something like that to just get the Global Foundry people, you know, even if public access hasn't been fully opened yet at that point, if we got their approval for it, we could sort of just organize another day, like we did for the trail walk this fall.
For sure.
I know Chapin would love to see more invasive removal going on, but I know he's feeling stretched thin. So if somebody else is able to be the weed warrior leader for the day, I'm sure
Sure.
he would appreciate dividing and conquering.
No, that sounds good. I'm sure I was looking more at sort of an Earth Day thing because it might be a weekday thing. Green Up Day, we usually end up being pretty busy with cleanups at parks and my other conservation commission things I do in my town. But yeah, if you know, we could keep you in the loop or try to update you over the next month and maybe plan for something at you know, that late April time frame or something like that.
Okay. Yeah, yeah, whatever works for you guys. I mean, you know, so if Green Up Day is not gonna work for the park district, then we can pivot. You know, I don't think we've fully transitioned into Green Up Day Weed Warrior at this point. We're still mostly doing the roadside pickup. There's a lot of roads in Williston.
Sure. But yeah, if we, you know, put the word out a little bit, get a few people out there, might get you guys some volunteers or some, you know, at one point when we had a more invasive program like that, you know, we sort of worked training some people who could then take out other groups and things like that.
Yeah, yeah, totally.
How we did it sort of a long time ago, but it's sort of fallen by the wayside. And, you know, now we're sort of taking out different groups and more of a mishmash at the moment in time.
Well,
Or
I could definitely see that once permanent access is made available and we don't need to coordinate through the Global Foundries contact. But I think for as long as we're in that holding pattern, we're gonna have to maintain that relationship.
For sure.
Great.
But yeah, so we'll be probably poking Nathan again soon. Nick will probably do, but maybe not too soon.
Yep.
But yeah, other than that, you know, we'll keep you updated as soon as we hear anything. Keep you updated what I hear from the right away people, and Yeah,
Have you been back there in the snow, Tim?
I have not been back there in a little bit. I mean, I see some activity in the hopefully future parking lot. More with I think some neighbor usage again a little bit and things like that. But no, I haven't. I mean, it looks like you could pull in there and park and hike back there if you wanted to, just because of that lot being cleared.
Right. It's just
I don't know if that's Global Foundries or if the neighbor is plowing it, but I'm not sure.
it's got to be global.
I think it's global, yeah.
Yeah, we'll probably just keep it open.
I know we did get a pre-notice on the solar expansion that's in this vicinity, so that's coming, and I'm sure they're probably looking for the dust to settle on some of that PUC permitting before they engage with us further on the trailhead and access, so. But that is in motion, so good to know.
Aren't we supposed to get, that should come through us if they're doing the solar siting too, right? I mean, that's actually how we initially opened this conversation was they came here for solar siting on Mountain View.
Yeah, so we got just the heads up, would you please waive us sending you the giant pile of paper and accept email service notice, which is usually the first thing we get, and then probably by the end of this week or next week, we'll get the actual notice that'll trigger that same conversation like we did with our last one. So it's coming.
So that means that they will come through this commission for a pre-app of that solar development.
No,
it's,
because it's not
citing-
subject to zoning.
It's a citing, we have, renewable energy citing preference or whatever through
Right.
our energy plan. So we'll just be looking at, what recommendations the town might want to make to the state.
Yeah. So I think typically, the notice goes to the planning commission, but the planning commission has wanted WCC input on those. And that's, I think, what we did with the last two, over there. So that's how renewable energy that's grid tied, goes outside of zoning review, by state law. It goes through review by the Public Utility Commission.
Yeah.
Because Williston has an enhanced energy plan, we get substantial deference, to the priorities of that plan under PUC review.
Yeah.
But generally, deference to Williston is deference to, an energy plan that's very solar friendly. So there's usually like a few things we might comment on about, siting, but we're not like some towns that have, like really big aesthetic objections to solar is not part of our energy plan. So oftentimes what's proposed is more or less in alignment with what the town's already said it's a finding acceptable.
Okay.
But yeah, we will have some process around it.
All right, Reed?
Matt, if we want to do a volunteer day, we would either need a staff. Well, we don't need a staff person but we do need the forms, volunteer
We
forms.
need to
made
just
up
get
ahead of time.
everybody, we need to get everybody signed up with a volunteer agreement, that's all.
So Tim, minors can't volunteer on town-owned property in Williston right now. So that, just so you're aware, kids wouldn't be able to do this, and adults would have to, a form would have to be created for each adult ahead of time, right? 48 hours notice.
Yeah.
To get the forms created. And we don't have a conservation plan right now, so I guess Matt, you or somebody else in the planning office would fill it out for us.
Yeah, so we just have to write up like what the event is, when it's happening, where it's happening, and then just get people to sign their waiver.
So sounds like we need a little bit of a heads up, Tim, if you guys if you wanna organize that for an Earth Day around event, just give us enough of a heads up in a future meeting so that the town can do some prep work.
Sounds good.
Okay, great. Think that's good.
All right.
Thank you so much, Tim. Thank you, Nick.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Sounds
Bye,
good.
guys.
We'll keep you updated. Thank you.
Thank you.
What are we gonna do with our last minute?
Other business, I will just say that, as the chair, I was invited by Eric Wells to what they call the Williston Ledge Breakfast. So that was all of the senators and, representatives, to Williston and all of the committee chairs. It was a nice event. It was Monday morning. big topics for discussion at the Ledge House, the legislative branch, is education. Aaron Brady gave a very thorough analysis of what she's been working on with the governor's education plan. I also had a chance to talk to Senator Chittenden about our ballot initiative and what's coming up. He said, "Why didn't you just go for a full cent?" I was like, well, that would have been more than we asked for.
We are behind, but we don't
Yeah.
want to come in.
Yeah, we don't want to come in too hot. Senator Chittenden, thank you for the suggestion, though.
Well, he lives in South Burlington like I do, where we throw pennies at everything all the time. And,
Penny is commonplace, yeah. Not in Williston.
Not in Williston. Maybe next year.
We are penny pinchers.
Yes.
Yeah, but it was a nice event. And what sort of struck me, as always, is that even though these are top of mind issues for us, it barely scratches the radar. In my professional world, I was hoping to hear if they would say something about what they're planning to do on climate, and didn't even get brought up. It's like education, zoning, tax collections on everything, and so just kind of interesting state of affairs. I'm expecting the Ledge to be totally focused on this education proposal, and if anything else comes out of that, like a budget, then great. But nice event though. Eric, you probably went to those last year, right?
I don't think I did. I don't remember getting the invitation. Must be you're a better chair than I am.
I think they mentioned that,
or I had a conflict, who knows? But yeah, I don't think I made it.
I think they mentioned we hadn't done an in-person one in some time.
Oh, that is right.
There you go.
They haven't done in person since pre-COVID. That's right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it didn't come up at the legislative breakfast, but the bill's not out yet, but the governor made a big announcement last week about another omnibus housing bill. And just in conservation's wheelhouse, one of the things he was floating was a reduction in wetland setback and mitigation fees in designated centers. So going to a 1-to-1 instead of a 2-to-1 mitigation, and from a 50-foot to a 25-foot buffer on wetlands in those areas planned for growth. So we'll see what that looks like in bill language sometime between now and I think crossovers like March 14th.
Would that include the RZD or just the urban growth?
Just the growth centers.
Probably just the designated centers, but keep an eye on that too, and keep an eye on, we had a presentation last night from the Regional Planning Commission about the sort of the work plan that's flowing forward from Act 181 last year, related to the regional planning of what's an area plannage for growth, what's a center, how does that line up with potential Act 250, either partial exemptions or full exemptions, full town jurisdiction over Act 250, et cetera. So there's some work that will happen at the regional planning level in response to Act 181 that's going to happen pretty much parallel to the writing of our town plan. And we're just trying to keep those two things coordinated and be thinking about those statements you might make about, does Williston, ultimately it would be a select board decision, want to take on Act 250 jurisdiction in some or all of its areas planned for growth. Because that's what 181 provides you under the tier 1A application process.
We just have one right now, right? Just Half Corners.
Well, we have our village center and we have our growth center.
Oh, the village center is also a designated center.
So that's another kind of center, and I can't recall if you can go for 1A with the village center. You can certainly go for 1B, which is the permanent exemption that looks kind of like the interim priority housing project exemption that we have right now. So there's going to be a land use map out there that you folks like maps, and you like commenting on maps and designations and boundaries, and the RPC will be running a public process about that will look a lot like a lot of the planning process that we've been doing for the town plan, but it's for their plan. And you can see their PowerPoint on the PC agenda page for last night if you want to take a look at it, or watch Darren present it, because the video's up on YouTube this morning.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, keep us up to date on any of that, if it changes in the legislature, man. Great, we're adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone.